Welcome to Wildcat Science with Mrs. Haugo. This is biology and we are in the genetics unit and we are looking at activity number 20, are GMOs the solution? So please write this down in your notes, just skipping 3 lines after activity 19. And then the challenge, which you should also write down, is should the Government Panel of Genetic Modification approve the planting of genetically modified soybeans? And you should have already done your activity number 20 vocab and turned that in. And then today we're going to look at the activity number 20 intro, graphs, and proposal, which is found on page 400 to 402. So please find your book and open up to page 400 and 402 and follow along with us. Okay, looking at your book, please follow along, and we're looking at our scenario. Your country is facing the possibility of an economic and social crisis. Over the last 40 years, the country has grown more soybeans and fewer other crops. Now, the primary crop grown in your country is soybeans. Only a small percentage of the soybeans are sold within the country for human and animal consumption. Most of the soybeans are exported to other countries, which contributes significantly to your country's economic and social well-being. For several years, soybean production has been low due to an ongoing drought. Last year, a virus, soybean mottling virus, wiped out 2/3 of the already small soybean crop. SMV is transmitted by aphids and causes plants to grow fewer leaves, smaller pods, and fewer, if any, soybeans. Genomics Unlimited Incorporated has offered to fund the growing of soybeans genetically modified to protect against SMV. The GM soybean called soy has a gene inserted from another plant which produces a substance that deters aphids. As a scientific advisor to your government's panel on genetic modification, your job is to recommend which action the government should take. So take a look at the picture of the top soybean and the bottom soybeans and what is the difference. So in our case with the coronavirus and in activity number 20, there is a virus causing some economic and social crisis. So perhaps we should just tell the soybeans to practice social distancing. Okay, looking at the next page, the challenge again is should the Government Panel on Genetic Modifications approve the planting of genetically modified soybeans? And you should find your student sheet 20.1 GM soybean study comparison, which you should have picked up on Tuesday at school. And so we're going to be looking at the graphs below and figuring out what information they tell us. So this one we're looking at bushels of soy and the years from 1970 to 2010. And I would like you to tell me what trends you see in the data. And then the second one are profit from soy, and we're looking at the profit, and then the year again from 1970 to 2010, and what trend you see, and then particularly how we compare these two graphs together. And then our third one is crop diversity, and looking at the same years and crop diversity and what trend do you see. If you said that there had been a general increase until about 2010 and then a sharp decrease in the production of soy, you would be right. And then in the profits, if you had said that they increased steadily until there was a sharp decline, which is at the same time as the production, you would be right. And then in the third graph, if you had said that the crop diversity has been steadily declining, then you would also be right. And we can see that the crop diversity declining has had an impact or has had and is implicated in the production, and the profit going down. All right, so we're going to read our proposal. Genomics Unlimited has developed a genetically modified strain of soybean called soy. Their studies have shown that soy resists infection by SMV. They believe that if your farmers raise soy, it will restore soybean production in your country to profitable levels. GU proposes that half of the soybean farmers in your country plant soy for this year's crops. Because your farmers have faced such problems with SMV, GU offers your country a low price on the seed for this year. All of their initial effectiveness and safety testing has shown positive results, and they are confident that this GM seed will be a great help in solving your SMV problems. Okay, now looking at procedure 3, we can see that there are going to be 4 scientific studies, and we're going to be looking at the data and drawing conclusions based on these studies. Okay, we will be going over study 1 together, and then you will be responsible for studies 2, 3, and 4. So the study time frame is 12 months. Our research group is Genomics Unlimited. And the study objectives was to test susceptibility of soy, genetically modified soybeans, to SMV transmitted by aphids, which is a common carrier. And then the procedure. 20 test greenhouses were set up, 10 to grow unmodified soybeans and 10 to grow soy, genetically modified soybeans. And once a week, the number of leaves and soybean pods were counted on each plant. Half the greenhouses for each type of crop were exposed for 2 months to aphids carrying SMV. All plants were checked once a week to determine if they had contracted SMV, and all crops were watered and fertilized regularly. Trials were repeated 3 times for 120 days each, and the results were averaged. The study results are shown at right, which we will look at here. And we can see that our blue dashed line is soy control. And then we can see that our green line is soy exposed to SMV. And then this orange line is the non-modified soy that was not exposed to SMV. And then this little red line is the non-modified soy that was exposed to SMV. So this is what we would expect for the number of leaves, and modified soy being resistant to SMV, and the non-modified soy that was not exposed to the virus being just fine. But then the non-modified soy that was exposed to the virus declined. So looking at the number of soybean pods, a very similar result to the number of leaves, where the genetically modified soy, both control and exposed, are showing growth. Your non-modified soy, your control, showing growth, and then your non-modified soy that was exposed to the virus was showing the least amount of growth. And our third result down here is the percentage of positive plants that are positive for SMV. So the opposite, all genetically modified soy would not have it. The non-modified that was not exposed would not have it, but then your non-modified that was exposed would show the virus. And then our study conclusions. Soy plants are more resistant to SMV than unmodified soy and have a higher yield than unmodified soy that is exposed to SMV. There is no significant difference in growth and yield results when the plants are not exposed to SMV. Okay, so now we're going to go over the worksheet together, and you want to find this one that you got, and we're looking at study 1, where was it conducted? The lab or the field? And it was conducted in the lab. So we see here that greenhouses were set up. The next question is, how long was the study? And if we look up here, the study time frame was 12 months. And then the growth conditions. Looking at our procedures, what are the growth conditions? So if we look here, all plants were grown in a greenhouse, and half of them were exposed to SMV, and half were the control groups. And then all crops were watered and fertilized regularly. Okay, looking at the next column, the results, effects on SMV resistance. So we can see from these two graphs that the soy, the genetically modified plants, were resistant to the SMV virus, but the unmodified plants were not resistant to SMV virus. Okay, the next column, the effects on yield, you can see that the two control groups and the genetically modified group has more pods and more leaves than the non-modified soy that was exposed to the virus. And there are higher yields with the genetically modified exposed to the virus compared to non-modified exposed to the virus. Okay, looking at the final column, the conclusions we'll find here, and we find that the genetically modified soy was more resistant to SMV and it had higher yields than the non-modified soy exposed to SMV. Okay, great. That is study 1. I'm going to have you look at study 2 and fill out the worksheet, and study 3 and fill out the worksheet, and then study 4 and fill out the worksheet, and then hopefully tomorrow we'll have some kind of discussion about it. Okay, take care. See you next time. Bye.